Our first speaker is Dr. Kelley Baker, and I'm guessing everybody in here knows Dr. Kelley Baker, and so no introduction is really necessary. But if you don't know her, you're in for a real treat. At our last CLE that we had in the fall CLE, Dr. Baker was kind enough to come and do part one of this presentation, and we had so many people contact me and say, please bring her back for the second part, that she's agreed to come back and speak to us about this. Dr. Baker is a specialist in parental alienation. She is a licensed professional counselor. She counsels kids. She does various types of therapies for reunification. She serves as a guardian ad litem, and she's absolutely brilliant at what she does. I think what you will see about Dr. Baker is that more than anything, more than her expertise and her education and her demeanor, is that she really cares about what she does. She really cares about kids, and she's awesome in court. If you ever need a guardian that will come testify for you, Dr. Baker's the person that you need to be speaking to. Please join with me in welcoming Dr. Baker. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Thanks for coming this morning. I know many of you here. For those of you I don't know, I've been working in the Williamson County area for over 20 years and specializing with children and families going through divorce and separation, probably for over 15 years. And then more recently, over the last 10 years, really focusing on issues of alienation. Before we get started, I want to just say that some of my business cards have my website as .com, and it's actually .co, like is up here. It's correct up here, but some of my older cards got mixed in with the ones that I brought. So when I talk on this topic, I always find myself wanting to begin with a message about why it's important that we're here trying to learn more about parental alienation. And when I spoke in New Orleans to the Texas Bar Association, my opening message was about the importance of childhood attachments and the consequences to those attachments when they're disrupted. And when I spoke last spring when I was here, my message was really about the importance of specialized training and education for both mental health professionals and legal professionals, because I had found that in working with these families, it really took all of us to contain and help a family through an intervention process. And the more that we were all grounded in knowledge and being collaborative, the more likely we were to be able to help these families. Today, I would like to begin with a message about the consequences to children who are forced or manipulated to reject a parent. I could have done that by just giving you a list of consequences that I'm sure we would all be aware of, right? A list of negative outcomes, increased suicide. This is not that list, but I meant to change that earlier. A list of negative consequences like increased risk of suicide, increased risk of depression, substance abuse problems, school failure, all of those things. And yet I don't feel like those lists or even the statistical outcomes for those consequences capture the tragic loss that I see in these children when I work with them. And I think in psychological terms, my mentors have described that loss as the child's loss to freely and unconsciously explore their world. I don't think that captures it either. I know in spiritual terms we might talk about a wound to the soul, a wound that's so deep that it interferes in the human spirit's ability to reach their full potential. But over the months preceding this talk, I'm just thrashing around in my mind about how can I demonstrate this quality that I find impossible to capture with words. And I'm in the kitchen cooking one night, and my son calls to me from the other room and says, "Mom, come in here and watch this show with me." He's 11 years old. And of course, I'm in the middle of my evening agenda. I'm very task-oriented. I have to get dinner, have to get homework, have to get bath. We got to get to bed by 9. And my first inclination is to say, you know, no, I can't stop doing what I'm doing. But I'm glad I had a moment of clarity, and I just put down my kitchen utensils and I went and sat with him on his couch, and I watched this performance. And this performance brought tears to my eyes, and I realized that what I was trying to show you was the loss of something without showing you what that something is. And so this performance that I watched with my son that night has become a part of this presentation as a way to begin by showing you the precious beauty of a child who's fully in sync with themselves that we are trying to protect when we do this work. So we're going to spend just 2.5 minutes watching this. Turn it up a little bit.
Hi, welcome to America's Got Talent. How are you?
A little bit nervous.
That's okay to be nervous. It's totally understandable. What's your name?
Courtney,
And how old are you?
13.
13. What's your favourite subject in school?
Music.
What kind of music?
I don't know.
You're very sweet. And I'm guessing you're going to be singing for us?
Yeah.
Listen, don't be nervous. I know this is a big stage and there's lots of people here, but you're here for a reason, so go for it and good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so, isn't that great? I can barely watch that without crying. So when people ask me why I do this work, and they ask me that quite often, that is why I do this work, to protect the opportunity for a child to become all that they can become. The children that I work with are so burdened. They might have goals, they might have interests, they might have passions, but they don't have the energy to pursue those goals or those passions. Their duty in life is not to be true to themselves. It's not to follow their own interest, and it's not to be the very best that they can be at whatever their unique talents are, whether it's singing or writing poetry or being in the school play. Their duty in life is to carry the negative agenda of an angry, embittered, and oftentimes mentally ill parent. That's what their job is. So when you get the chance to bring a child back into the land of the living, I call it, where they are somewhat protected from the agenda of the alienating parent, what you see is these interests and these passions start to come alive. And that is the focus of my life work. That's the focus of my putting together this training curriculum. The training curriculum I put together consists of 4 parts. Last spring we talked about what is parental alienation and how does it happen. Today we're going to talk about the assessment process and differentiation. The other 3 parts are intervention and then, or 2 parts, intervention and then the intersection of legal, judicial, and mental health professionals. So I'd like to do just a quick recap, very quick, because we have a lot to cover today, on the spring presentation. What is parental alienation and how does it happen? I offered this first definition last spring, which I thought was very short and concise and to the point. However, I found an even better one, number 2. The unjustified rejection of a once loved parent. It's a one-liner and it captures it all. We talked about how it happens. We talked about several ways that an alienation reaction can take hold in a child. We began by discussing behaviors that parents engage in. We went through 17 different behaviors in the spring in detail. And then we also talked about negative messages being given to the child, not only verbally, but how those messages are given in a nonverbal way. We talked about stressful transitions, if you remember this from the presentation, where I talked about the stress that the child feels when they carry the agenda of one parent to the other parent's home, and how after weeks and months of going back and forth and not being able to get out of the middle of that conflict, that they will sometimes eventually shut down and refuse to transition to the other home. We also talked about unhealthy family dynamics, where there are unhealthy alignments between parents and children. And a new section that I've added to this is programming and brainwashing. We didn't talk about that, but I just wanted to say that's a part of that piece of the presentation now. So if we move into part 2, assessment and differentiation. Assessment refers to what it is we look at, what we review, what kind of information we ask for, who we talk to, and how we observe the dynamics within the family. Differentiation refers to classifying the situation in terms of severity as well as type. And although these, justified rejection is across from mild and hybrid is across from moderate, those don't completely line up. You can have a severe alienation reaction that is a hybrid case. This is just the way I put it on the screen. So whenever we're talking about assessment, an error in assessment that often happens is that one person within the family unit will be focused on. It will either be the child because of their behavior, or it will be the parent that is deemed to be doing everything wrong. And that could be the parent that's favored, or it could be the parent that is rejected. Each family member needs to be assessed individually, and it needs to be determined what each of their contributions to the problem is. We also need to look at the whole system of the family, right, and how they're acting, how they've been functioning prior to the separation or divorce will tell us a lot about the alignments between parents and children. When I talk about alienation, I talk about it from 2 different points of view. One, I'm going to look through the assessment, I'm going to describe the alienation reaction in the child. And then the other piece of the assessment is going to try to explain that alienation reaction by looking at the contributing behaviors of the parents. So when somebody says, I have an alienation case, I always say, well, what's the alienation reaction look like in the child? And then now tell me what is going on in the parents. And all the information that I accumulate is looking at it from those two perspectives, looking at the situation from those two perspectives.